So, I'm going to show you how to do something pretty useful for digital marketing, which is to combine um, two different tables into one in R. So, this could really come in handy from a digital marketing perspective. You may be working in a number of different tools or have a number of different Excel documents. Maybe you have a Google Search Console data or Google Analytics data or data from a ranking tool, and you want to combine those by some common element like a URL or a keyword or something of that nature. So that definitely will come up at some point, and so it's good to know how to combine those things in R. So let me just expand my screen a little bit here, and you'll most likely be using connecting to an API, or maybe you are going to be uploading some Excel documents into R and working from there. But for the sake of this tutorial, I just created two very simple tables or data frames. The first one's called URL.links, and it has one column called URL, and just notice one thing, which is that these URLs, the format, they start with the host name, and then a second column called links. And then I have another table, again, with a column called URL, but this one's slightly different because it has this HTTPS colon slash slash in the beginning, and so we'll deal with that. But this second column here is organic traffic, and so the goal here will be to basically combine these two tables by URL and get everything into the same data frame. And so what we want to do here first before we merge the tables is there has to be some sort of common key, and in this case we're almost there. Both of these tables have a column called URL, but again these are slightly different, and so what we want to do is really just transform one of these tables so that they're common. And so this is called, often referred to as a key or something in common. And so what we'll do here is let's just remove the HTTPS colon slash slash from this column in this table, and then we'll have something better to work with. And so there's a great built-in function called gsub. It's really easy to use, and we'll use that to remove the HTTPS from that column. So the first thing we want to do is decide what we want to name this when it's done, and I want to keep it named as I want to keep it named as URL, the column, so that it's again in common with the links data frame, and I'm fine with keeping it at the same name of URL traffic as well. So again, we'll use a gsub function. It's really easy to use. We'll type in the function. There's only really three things or three arguments that we need to make in this function, and it's very similar to maybe something that you'd write in Excel for a function. But the first thing we want to do is determine what the pattern is, and remember the gsub function, its whole purpose is to replace, to remove and replace. So we basically just need to tell it what to do, and it'll go through our table that we specify, and it'll perform those actions. So here we determined we want to remove HTTPS colon slash slash, and we're going to put that in between double quotes, just because it's a string. Next argument we want to make is what do we want to replace it with. So we know we want to replace this, but what do we want to replace it with? In this case, we want to replace it with nothing at all. So we're just going to do a double quote, and that's it. We'll keep it empty, and that'll help us out. And then the last thing we need to do is just specify which column we want this transformation to take place in. So again, we want to use a URL traffic data frame, and whenever we want to specify a column, we'll just throw in the $sign and type in URL. So this is where we want the transformation to occur. These are instructions around what we want it to do, and this is just what we're going to save it as when it's done. So we'll go ahead and do that. And we always want to double check these things, so I'm just going to type in view and then check out this table, and it'll appear in the top left quadrant here. So let's check it out, and it looked like it worked. So if you look at the table now, it's removed the HTTPS portion, and now we have something in common between these two tables, and we can go ahead and merge. So that's great. So the next step then is just to merge these two or join them, and since they have something in common, what we'll do is we'll basically just create a new table or a new data frame. And I'll just call that, you call it anything you want. I'll call it URL.final. And you could call it URL_final, whatever you want. But that's what we'll call it. And there's really a very easy built-in function to do this called merge. So we'll use merge. And for merge, we basically want to type in the two data frames that we want to work it with. In this case, it's URL.links, and then the second one that we want to work with, which is URL.traffic, and then the last argument is simply what we want to join it by. So we'll type in by equals, and then we'll say URL, because that's the column that we want to join this by. So what this will end up doing, what this should do, is give us one data frame with three columns. One is the common column that just got combined into one, which is URL. And then it'll add on to the right of that both links and organic traffic. So that's what it should look like. Now this is called an inner join. And there's lots of different ways you can join tables. You can just kind of pile things on to the right of a table if you want. You don't necessarily have to here we got rid of one of the URL columns because they're the same thing anyway. You don't necessarily need to do that. But that's why it's called an inner join. And there's other ones that we won't get into, but if you're familiar with SQL, then you've definitely know what I mean. So we created that table, and again, we want to double check just to make sure everything's working okay. So we'll do view URL final, and you can see it worked. So we have our data frame, URL column, links column, and organic traffic column. So this is something that you might do in SQL, and the merge function works just fine for a simple inner join like this. But if you need to do more complicated work that is very SQL-like, then there's actually a great function or a package. I keep calling it package or function, but it's really a package called SQL DF. And if you want to do things like query a database or query a data frame, you can really use just like SQL queries that you're used to. It's very simple to use. So let's say you had 1 million rows and you want to pull data out of it based on certain criteria, or you wanted to merge things in more creative ways. That one's definitely worth looking at if you already know SQL and basically want to be able to type in SQL queries in R to accomplish whatever it is that you need to do. So definitely check that one out. Okay, well, hopefully this was helpful. I really appreciate you listening and watching. And until next time, we'll see you again.